Yo, what's going on guys, HyperX here, welcome back to another video for Pokemon Unite, and today I thought I'd put together a few handy tips for those of you guys that are diving into the game for the first time. It's been out a couple of days now, but I appreciate that depending on the sort of games you played before, this may well be your first exposure to a MOBA or any kind of game like this, so there are a few things that are kind of handy that you should definitely keep in mind whilst in your battles. So if you guys do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated, and do be sure to keep it locked because I'm personally really enjoying playing this right now, so if you guys want to see more Unite content, then definitely keep letting me know in the comments down below. But to begin with, in number one, the very first point is to adjust your settings. From the main menu, if you press X to open up the sub-menu and scroll down to settings, there are two main things I would suggest turning on. The first one is to enable advanced control. By default, it's on the sort of auto control, whereby when you're attacking, it attacks things that are either closest to you or based on low HP. Meanwhile, if you go to advanced control, then this will allow you to basically attack with both A and B. Now, the useful thing about this one is that A will be used to attack the opposing enemy, i.e. human enemies, and B will be used to attack nearby wildlife, i.e. NPCs. Now, you can of course use these independently if there's only one target there, but the reason this is useful is because if you're using the auto method and say you want to target something particular, you don't really have too much control over what you're hitting if something else kind of comes your way. So by having this one, you have a little bit more control. You can kind of switch between the different buttons depending on what your focus wants to be. It might be that the wild Pokemon is like 1 HP and you want to make sure you get that kill, so you get the point, so you can then prioritize where you want to attack. On top of that, it's also worth turning on the lock-on feature because this will basically add a wheel to your menu, to your screen, and then whenever you're playing, you can actually quickly flick the right analog stick to focus on who you want to be attacking. So of course, if you're playing against lots of other players and there's, say, a Machamp on screen or something like that, you can flick to that particular Pokemon and you can ensure that you're targeting that. So again, just kind of gives you a little bit more control. Obviously, the auto feature does a pretty good job, but when you start getting a little bit more serious and you do want to prioritize where you're attacking, these will be useful. Moving on from there to point number 2, do the tutorials. Now, of course, when you begin the game, it'll run you through the first 2 tutorials, but there are actually 4 more to run through, and these will go through some pretty handy stuff. Some of the stuff at the beginning is pretty basic about, say, aiming your moves, how to cancel your moves, which can still be pretty useful, but it will also teach you things about enemy types and buffs and sort of different enemies that you could attack in the field. However, on top of that, it will also allow you to earn some coins, so if you're trying to sort of save up stuff, then this is a good way to not only familiarise yourself with the game, the genre, and the different mechanics, but also earn some currency at the same time. Then moving on from there to point number 3, learning the different types of Pokemon in battle, more specifically the special Pokemon you can battle in the wild. First up, you have Rotom, who will appear in the top lane, of course denoted by the yellow icon, and when you defeat him and you take him to an opponent's goal, you will instantly score 20 points, but it will also make that goal zone defenseless, and it will speed up your scoring whilst it's a defenseless zone. So of course, the more points you accrue, the longer it takes you to score, so by having Rotom there and allowing yourself to score quicker is mighty handy. However, on top of that, you have Ludicolo. If you defeat him, you'll get a purple aura, and this will make it so that you deal more damage to wild Pokemon with low HP. If you defeat Bouffalante, you'll get an orange aura, and this will make it so that your attacks decrease the movement speed of the opposing Pokemon. And if you then defeat Dreadnought, who typically appears in the bottom lane, you will get a shield, which will nullify some damage taken. It is worth noting both Ludicolo and Bouffalante are in the, what they kind of typically call the jungle, the sort of middle of the map. This is typically the area that speedsters, i.e. junglers, will normally reside. So you should ideally leave that to them because they will be the ones that are dipping between lanes. So you ideally want to let them get those buffs so they can then use them to jump in, assassinate enemies and jump back out. So don't necessarily, if say you're a bottom lane or a top lane fighter, go out of your way to try and grab those buffs because they're not necessarily designed for you. Not to say you can't, but it is typically something that your speedsters will benefit most from, so just keep that in mind. Moving on from there to point number 4, learn the types of Pokemon. Of course, when you play the game, Pokemon fall within one of 5 different categories: Support, Defender, Attacker, All-Rounder, and Speedster. And depending on the Pokemon you play, they will of course have different roles. Support type Pokemon, they will of course provide useful buffs to allies and or debuffs to enemies. Now naturally, of course, these are fantastic in teams, but support Pokemon are often best when paired with another Pokemon to sort of back them up, because if they get swamped in battle, while they can still win some engagements, they will not necessarily always win when going, say, toe-to-toe with like an attacking type. So you tend to sort of pair support types with other Pokemon. You then have the defenders. They of course have much higher defense. They can more easily tank enemy damage for their team, and they can of course crowd control enemies. You then have the attacker types. You can of course have both melee and ranged attackers. These are Pokemon who are kind of specifically made to deal damage. They are slightly more squishy, more kind of glass cannon in that respect, but they do have great damage potential. So if you're trying to take things out very quickly, they are of course very potent. You then have the all-rounders, who are kind of like a hybrid between both attacker and defender. Good balance of, attacking power whilst not being too squishy. And then finally you have the speedsters, who are the kind of Pokemon that can quickly go in and out of battle, acting sort of like your assassins. These are typically the sort of Pokemon types that will reside more in the middle of the map. They'll go around getting the buffs, they'll sort of dip between top and bottom lanes, trying to sort of assist and basically get kills where possible, so that is effectively their role. Now, moving on from there to point number 5, learn your lane. Again, this is something that is incredibly important because, of course, there are different Pokemon that are better in different positions. And when it comes to beginning a match, if you go to Battle Prep and you go into the bottom option, you can actually find out a recommendation for where your Pokemon is most suited. So, of course, you can see in the situation that it says that Machamp is best down in the bottom lane. So, if you do this, then again, if you're new to MOBAs, you don't ideally want to be running between various different lanes. You don't want to be dashing between, say, top and bottom and this, that, and the other, unless, of course, you're a jungler, you're a speedster, so you ideally want to find where you're best and then farm enemies, farm wildlife down there, and of course try and progress through your lane. Then in number 6, another quick tip is to communicate pre-match. Now of course in this game there's no actual communication. It's not that you can really sort of type in text, nor can you use voice chat unless of course you're playing with friends across something like Discord. However, before a match begins, you can use some pre-made shoutouts to let people know A, what type of Pokemon you're choosing, like I'm an attacker, I'm a defender, I'm a support type. And you can also say where you want to be attacking, like I'll be the bottom lane, I'll be top lane. This is typically quite useful because again, if people are slightly more organised and they at least know what they're doing, then you might have someone say, hey, I'm going to play support and I'll go bottom lane, and then you can stick together. Next up, another handy tip in at number 7 is to score regularly. Scoring of course takes longer if you hold a lot of points, and if you're near a goal and you're carrying a small amount, then don't hold them, just bank them. Keep in mind that if you die, you do of course drop your points, the enemy can pick them up, so it does of course pay to basically just bank them whenever you can. Not to say that if you go and get one kill, you should instantly run to the other side of the field to bank it, but what I am saying is if you're in a position where you are near the enemy goal and you're carrying even something like 5, if you happen to just be there, bank them so they're safe, as opposed to holding on to them so you get like a massive number like 20 or 30, because again, when you go to score, it will take you longer, you might get interrupted, if you die, you drop them. Basically, it's an endless cycle. So don't be afraid to score regularly. Then in number 8, how to battle the legendary Pokemon. Because of course, as you get towards the end of a match, a legendary Pokemon will appear in the middle of the map. Now this is an incredibly important thing to battle because it can turn the tide of a battle. But keep in mind, you ideally shouldn't be tackling these things solo. Not to say you can't take them out solo, but keep in mind, whoever defeats the legendary Pokemon, the opposing team will have all of their zones rendered defenseless. This of course leaves them massively open. It also drops a bunch of orbs, allowing people to basically make a comeback. Taking out a legendary can genuinely turn the tide in battle, so if you go and sort of tackle it solo, and then you die, and you happen to leave it on, say, low HP, the enemy can then just come straight in, finish it off and gain the benefit. So normally, if a legendary spawns, as a team, you ideally want to collectively make your way to the middle of the map because you can then have a greater chance of winning, and if you win, you can then again take full advantage of that. Then after that, don't forget to super jump in at point number 9. If you do happen to die, don't forget that as you get later on in the game, you can use the super jump feature to basically just quickly jump to different areas of the map, provided of course you are still holding those zones. This of course is very useful because again, if you do get defeated, you want to get back into battle as quickly as possible. So if you can avoid having to just run there and sort of add 10 seconds onto your return time, it's going to help your team massively. And then finally, in number 10, if you have not done so already, don't forget to claim your free ZERAORA. You can of course go to your mailbox in the settings, and you can then go and claim that. It is a free reward for anyone jumping into the game right now. It's a pretty cool Pokemon, and it's just another thing to mess around with. It's also pretty potent in battle. I've seen a lot of people using it. Definitely has some great potential. But for the time being, that's pretty much it. Those are a few handy tips just to get you started. Again, if you guys are enjoying this game and you're enjoying the content, let me know if you want to see more of it. I'll also have some more gameplay coming up soon, so definitely keep it locked for that. If you want to catch more from us at HyperX Gaming, don't forget you can catch the guys TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch weekdays, playing a variety of games. If you guys want to jump in, tune in, watch, and even join in, then make sure you check them out. The links to those are in the description box down below, and of course you can join the Discord to get involved in all of the discussions.